The year is 1984. Two men are meeting on
Video
an
games can make you
Amtrak.
a better athlete.
One of these men begins his pitch, a virtual football game. The other man, a former football coach, likes the idea, but he has one overarching demand. It needs to be real.
Welcome to John Madden Football. It's in the game.
That's how Madden started.
In the game. Guarantee you, baby, it's in the game.
We are 30 years
Yo, the presentation on that stuff like that used to be so much better, bro. EA really just throws the talent nowadays.
and 34 Madden iterations from that day now. A lot has changed.
We're unveiling the Xbox.
Having an arcade inside your room.
Best entertainment system to hit the world.
New games, new consoles and systems, but as each year passes, the line between what's real and virtual seems to be blurring more and more. And because of that, more and more athletes are turning to these devices to train.
Extended reality training systems used by athletes of different sports.
But does this or this improve our ability to play this? Or to throw this? Or to maybe smack this? Or to
I guess we'll find
shoot
out.
this, to play any of these sports? What is the link between video games and athletic performance?
Cover of a video game now. That's crazy. And are you good at this game?
2K15. Oh, man. Remember those days. Able to play video games carefree. Don't have to worry about bills or nothing like that.
I'm really good.
The virtual world is expanding exponentially. So if we're to explore this question, we can't just lump all these video games into one category. Instead, let's imagine a spectrum. The continuum. On one side, we have simulations, which are trying to mirror our reality. At the extreme, pure simulations are about the objects first. How real do the graphics and the physics feel? And on the contrary, on the other side of this, we have arcade games, which start with the user experience. How do you feel when you're playing the game? Now, there are games that one can create
Well, if it's
and thus
NCAA,
enjoy within
feel
any
pissed off most
simulation.
of the time.
And there are aspects to any arcade game that look to simulate some form of reality. The question is, does anything within this continuum improve athletic cognition and thus athletic performance?
What kind of man is the man up front?
This $2,500 machine is designed to do one thing.
Pull back on the yoke.
Mirror reality.
Actual training software that we have.
Flying.
Yeah, they better get this, start doing this again or something. I don't know. Them planes, bro. Every other day, it feels like I'm seeing something about some plane going down. And someone that flies pretty frequently. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't need to be going out like that.
That is.
Oh, baby. So it can go south real quick.
Oh, they got flames.
I don't want to go there now, though.
They got flames. That's good. That way you know.
Represents training capacity to
I go to a flying simulator.
Exactly what pilots will see as
Countless studies have shown the benefits of this. Companies invest millions
But this $20 million simulator is an
from
exact
planes to spaceships.
These are pretty rare airplanes. They only made a few dozen of them. High altitude, high speed reconnaissance.
It's early 60s technology.
The Museum of Flight has several of these simulators, some a little bit more exhilarating.
I took him out. What's the high score? You did good. You did the high score of the day. So far, I'm the first one though. Watch that.
We were watching you in that little screen.
Oh, you got to see me.
Than others.
It's hard to see the depth.
Boom.
I blew
Hold
up
up.
on that.
As I explored this larger question, this parallel immediately.
Nah, heck yeah, actually, I want to go to one of these now.
Astronauts and pilots can feel this.
Flight sim. No, wait. Flight simulator in person. Where's this? Wait, where is this? Oh, okay, Seattle. All right, maybe we have a trip to Seattle planned out. Nate, if you go to backpedal_school, that's where all the DB content is.
This experience through a simulator. Can athletes do the same thing? I've never felt 200 miles an hour until this moment.
Oh man! You know, I was just about to say, I feel like I'm getting better.
I suck at racing games. Oh my god.
We're going to be practicing the same
Like,
corner
awful.
over and over again, 100 times.
What makes F1 unique is the fact that the elites are training in these simulations. LeBron isn't warming up in 2K, but you'll find the reigning F1 champ in his simulator.
Max Verstappen is kind of known for how much he sim races, especially a couple months ago before one of the Grand Prix. Then he happened to be up until 3:30 in the morning before the race, sim racing.
These simulators have emerged as indispensable tools for both drivers and their teams.
You know, the team can scan the track, exactly the replica of the real track, to get to know the layout. I can also learn a lot of knowledge about the setup direction to approach the race weekend beforehand.
So how similar is this
Backpedal School? Just look it up, Backpedal School on Instagram.
Real world.
If I were to give it a percentage number, I'd say it's about 80%.
But even as real as these simulators have become, not all F1 drivers are bought in on sim racing.
I hardly ever drive a simulator.
Different people learn in different ways. We see this in school.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Makes sense. I feel like everyone's not going to be the same way, because me personally, like, I can be good on a football field from walkthroughs and walkthroughs and meetings. Other people, they need to be doing it in practice. So
we see it everywhere.
Different strokes for different
Some
folks.
People, they have a hard time making the connection between the two. You know, they still see sim racing as a video game.
iRacing launched in 2008. By 2013, there were 50,000 active members. As of 2024, that number had reached 250,000.
If we look into it in just last 4 years, it's made a huge leap in that time.
There is plenty of literature on the transfer of skill that simulators can provide, but what I found fascinating for F1 was exploring the simulation gap. What makes something noticeably simulated? The first fragment most of us assume is graphics. That doesn't look real, therefore it is a game, or it's a simulation. But interestingly, the fidelity of the graphics might be less important. Researchers have concluded that essential realism is more crucial than the maximal realism. In the study, How is the Performance of a Race Car Driver Affected by Visual Features?, they found that drivers' times improved slightly with road texture and better fidelity. But these effects were small, giving rise to the importance of other cues. All the little movements, the feel, the bumps in the road.
I do definitely think it needs to be immersive.
Just a 4K screen running on.
Like, I mean, obviously, if I'm sitting here looking through a screen playing Madden, even if it was like perfectly the vision I would have in a real game, it's just not going to be the same because I'm not going through the same like movements and feelings and everything.
You don't have the exact same G-force. You might not have the same wind, and importantly, you don't have fear. That's a big factor.
Oh God! As you practice more and more, that fear in real life starts diminishing as well. You know, I used to be scared driving past 120, 130 miles an hour. Now I can go through a corner at 120 miles an hour.
Still scared to do that.
Public road. We got this
on a controlled track. We don't recommend street racing.
These machines don't feel like a video game. They feel far more real. They're far more faithful to the laws of physics. And because of that, you can see where an athlete like an F1 driver can certainly improve.
It's understandable how they can make these F1 simulators so powerful, so impactful and beneficial. The driver can remain stationary. Because of this, these are further left on our continuum. Clearly more of a simulation. They have the word simulator in their name for a reason. But what about sports where you can't just sit in a cockpit, where you actually have to move around a little bit more? There's one that has found massive recent simulated success.
It's that football. Oh no, golf. Oh, okay, yeah. I got the golf simulator because I really started golfing like last year. The simulator's cool and all, but it definitely like Simulator, I feel like I be cooking up sometimes. I get to the real course, ass.
Golf simulators aren't just for barefoot bros and beers. Right now, pros and amateurs are getting better somewhere in some simulator. Stan from your office, he's probably gonna take home KP, long drive, and possibly your freaking wife.
Speaking of wife, actually, matter of fact, after this video, I know exactly what we're gonna be looking at.
Stan sucks. However,
oh,
one can
man.
improve in golf simulators. There are still significant limitations. This is especially true for putting. This isn't real grass, at least it doesn't feel like it. That makes a big difference. All those little ups and downs, the reading that's involved with putting, you can't really simulate that with this.
Yeah,
Apparently, this isn't a big enough gap. In a twisted turn of reality, the pandemic revived and resuscitated this sport, fueling tech bro dream homes in the development of high-end golf sims.
I wasn't playing golf back then, so I didn't know like that happened.
It's not like we're really moving. This stationary action, I mean, you don't even have to lift your feet up when you're swinging a golf club. That makes it easier to simulate, similar to F1 simulators. And that got me wondering, are F1 simulators or golfing simulators closer to reality? And perhaps the better question is, can people improve more in an F1 simulator versus
like, I think there's a certain point you get better with the simulator.
That depends on a crucial element. How real the simulation feel.
But like there's a certain point I feel like on a real course that like things just become all the way different.
Between our agreed upon
Yo, what's good, Chaz?
And what is distinguishably just another computer program. These haven't quite passed the Turing test. However, the gap is closing.
You start off in a Link trainer. The sensation is one of actual flight.
This Link trainer, the first mass-produced flight simulator, was life and death. It was built for war. Thousands of pilots were trained in these little boxes for World War II. We went from this to this in less than a century. Nonetheless, the challenge for simulations, the more we move our bodies, the more difficult it becomes to simulate. Important for transfer of skill.
Pretty much all the research on trying to practice specific skills suggests that fidelity of implementation is what matters. So there's really good work, especially in the military literature, going back.
Nah, I did see a video on like this whole setup, bro. This setup is actually insane. Like, actually ridiculous.
So there's really good work, especially in the military literature, going back to the 50s, using simulators. And if simulators are off, sometimes in really minor ways, not only does it not generalize to the real thing, sometimes it can make things worse.
That's Dr. Sean Green, professor and researcher out of the University of Wisconsin, who has done extensive research on the effects of video games and simulations.
Across different sports, you can imagine very different consequences of not getting the simulation exactly correct, especially if you're building what we would call like a mental model of how the world works.
I want to see like a football VR where you gotta like
athletics are that way, right? Like things just happen too
actually read the quarterback and stuff like that.
Truly reactive, like you have to have some kind of mental model of the way
Loki,
things are gonna evolve.
Having one where like you're actually looking on as like a quarterback, oh, that would be hard.
Going to happen in the future. You're not necessarily making responses for the here and now. Often. And so if that model is wrong, the responses that you're going to generate are going to be similarly wrong. And the bigger that mismatch is, and the more critical that mismatch is, the bigger issues that you'll see.
F1 and golf simulators are trying to mirror reality, but the problem is, and this might seem obvious, they aren't quite real. Thus, the mental model we take from these simulators doesn't fully transfer to reality. A seemingly small simulation gap is still a relatively large mismatch, highlighting the complexity of our human experience. Oh, and by the way,
he's got some good subscription plugs.
Importantly, there is clear evidence that athletes are improving in virtual worlds, something that was unfathomable just a few decades ago. So what happens if we get a little bit further on this continuum? If we extend this a little further on this gradient, what happens if we pick up a controller?
John Madden Football.
Y'all be calling me Unc. Just so y'all know, I have never, ever, actually, I don't know if the Sega Genesis came out when I was born, but
Sega Genesis.
The first console.
No, I think
ever
no,
played,
I was
Sega
younger than
Genesis
this.
16-bit.
Definitely younger than this.
My brother and I used to sneak.
I think I was like,
down to the
I was born when the
basement
M64
when our
was
babysitter's
out.
son was at school. That kid sucked. He caught us one time, and that sucked too, playing his Mortal Kombat. But I remember playing John Madden Football, and it was unlike any game I had ever experienced. Stunning realism.
What do you want? Real players? You got it.
Funny how that was
Felt
realism for them
different
back
than
then.
the arcade.
Oh man, video games have come a long way.
It's like Boom Tech, a new dynamic physics-based tackling system in Madden NFL 24.
Yeah. Oh, whatever physics-based, whatever bullshit Madden be talking about, bro. That shit's not real. That shit sucks.
On PlayStation, Xbox Series, and PC that lets you dominate the gridiron like a bona fide Madden NFL superstar. This sentence Madden leads with. Their goals are clear. Madden isn't just looking to put us in the game.
Like, playing Madden, it do not feel, that shit do not feel like
This
real
goes
life
all
at
the
all.
way back to our train ride, where John Madden's original demand was for the game to be realistic. He wouldn't settle for anything less than 11-on-11 football. He wanted it to teach people how the game works. And it's easy to forget this, but that was a major pivot from the way sports games have been designed.
I had a chance to speak with Mark Trammell, who designed NBA Jam, and he had to say this. As soon as they turned it into more of a Mortal Kombat experience, it was just more fun.
I will say that though, there is like the difference between a fun game and a realistic game is definitely there. Like you have some games where they try and make it too real, and it's like, all right, this is just not fun for real. And then some games where it's like, all right, it's not real at all, super fun. Like think about it, Prime Fortnite, right? One of the most fun games ever. Way more fun in my opinion than like a game, let's call it PUBG, right? PUBG was more realistic, Fortnite more fun.
Additionally, a key detail here, he's on fire. This Madden versus Mark philosophy, it has become completely one-sided in sports games. It has been a one-way landslide towards realism, towards simulations.
Yo, NBA Street Volume 2, one of the greatest games of all time. Fire soundtrack too. Soundtrack was absolutely fire, but yo, as a video game, oh, this, what was it rated? 9.4 out of 10. Like, we just don't get games like this anymore. I don't know why GameStop's 3.7 out of 5, but nah, this was a banger of a game. Let's see the reception. Okay, you know, score is pretty high, but yeah, no, if they brought NBA Street Volume 2 back, doing numbers, crazy numbers. Almost might do numbers like NCAA did low key. But yeah, nah, this soundtrack right here, absolutely fire.
Much to the delight of the old Raiders coach, numerous football players and coaches have touted the educational benefits of the franchise. NFL players have openly talked about learning playbooks from.
And I'll say it's like marginally something you can learn with. Online is probably cooked. Like you can't learn the game if you just play online, mainly because the stuff you have to do to actually be good kind of goes against football. But
from the game,
I mean, you definitely, you know, those of you that want to learn coverages and things like that, I think, you know, Madden, not a bad place to start off. Now, you're going to want to obviously progress quickly, but you can definitely learn from them.
And simulating different route packages and
and offensive schemes, you can definitely learn some of that from Madden. Like high lows, horizontal stretches, all that stuff.
$15,000 fans, and fans who played Madden had a higher football IQ in every single category. Out of 32 questions, Madden players answered 22 correct, while non-Madden NFL players answered 14 correct. The survey also looked at the correlation of time playing the game and knowledge of the game, and again, there was a significant correlation. More Madden, more IQ. Well, football IQ, that is.
Then again, those who play that much Madden might just love and consequently know the game that much more. Nonetheless, there's a uniqueness to football that makes this correlation and realism more powerful than, say, well, NBA 2K or FIFA or the NHL. Football is scripted. It's formulaic, it's militaristic. There's still chaos and unpredictability, but compared to hockey, basketball, the more literal version of football, it's far less open. These scripts need to be memorized as plays, and Madden acts like a gamified test, teaching players and coaches different route packages, how to beat a defense, how to beat an offense, giving them an understanding of this territorial game. But extending beyond a gamified playbook test or play simulator, that's where we start to see limitations.
There's always going to be the problem, though, that playing Madden, you're playing it from a high third-person perspective, which is not the viewpoint that you'll be getting.
Button mashing also isn't going to improve your speed, size, or quickness. Fairly important attributes in football.
Nonetheless, for a high school QB or coach, this is a great way to simulate different route combinations, plays, defensive schemes, even if that fails to put players in the game.
So console games still have benefits, but they're further along this gradient. They're more entertainment.
I feel like 2K.
They're still not
FIFA
in the game. One game is looking to change that.
Oh, no, I see what they're saying.
I want to be quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Not later. Now.
We want to turn gamers into athletes.
You know.
We don't want to do what's already been done.
Nothing major.
I gotta get one of these. If they show what I think they're gonna show, I might have to cop one of these.
Andrew Hawkins and Troy Jones, two former football players, launched NFL Pro Era a couple years ago, a VR game that is looking to bring players a little bit closer to the game.
We felt like we have a data set that most people in this medium didn't have.
Yeah, Andrew Hawkins was actually kind of cold, though.
We're not engineers. We did not come from video games.
A three-pronged ecosystem of products for coaches, players, and fans.
How we sold to coaches was, we can get you home earlier because your players will understand this much faster than they will watching film. They could see that nickel blitz 100 times in an hour, something you won't be able to do at practice because you have 53 players that you have to make sure they're prepared for the game.
It doesn't have the same graphics or physics engine as Madden, but this is a completely different experience.
Heisman Trophy winner Jane Daniels is a believer.
Tough.
It moves faster within VR than actual human beings. Once you get out there, everything just slows down.
It's other ways to get mental rest without having to put wear and tear on your arm, on your body.
Cliff Kingsbury added weight. I'm all in on it. Mariota, another Heisman winner, also uses it regularly.
Bro, the visors with these face helmets, oh my, it's so nasty. Like, this space right here, it's just disgusting.
Those are big names ringing out endorsements.
Yeah.
And again, if you spend a lot of time doing something, you're more likely to assume it's working.
You know, you've devoted a bunch of time to something, you're very motivated for it to have been beneficial. As to whether or not it works for, NFL quarterbacks, I mean, what we always say is just because something's a placebo effect doesn't mean it's not real. So if they're actually better, even if it's just feelings of self-efficacy, still a real fact, right?
Thomas Hicks, the man who won the Olympic marathon about 100 years ago, was drinking rat poison. Also, Terry Bradshaw not too long ago.
And when I want a good chew, I go to my pouch of Red Man chewing tobacco.
Again, NFL Pro Era felt
Quarterback
much more
promoting
real
chewing
than
tobacco is
Madden,
nuts.
more of a simulation, but it's still got a lot of improvements to make, and I think Hawkins would admit that. That's how innovation works, though. Typically, most of the innovation, most of the improvements are earlier on. I mean, just think of the difference between John Madden's 1990 football and Madden 2004. Staggering. The differences between 2004 NFL Madden football and 2019, noticeable. Better graphics, better physics, but not as big of a leap. I think this is why Madden and why a lot of sports games have become stale. I don't think it's because of poor leadership, poor development, or focusing on the wrong things. I think they're maybe just reaching the console limits. This is where NFL Pro Era could capitalize.
That actually, that low key might be facts. Like, think about it. There's only so much you can do in a video game. I feel like the technology's, that actually makes a ton of sense. The technology is so good now that there just isn't much more innovation to be had to make the game that much better. Now, I do think a part of it is the game trying to be a little bit too realistic, too simulation. If we bump it down, make it a little more fun, arcadey, I think that's where it might have to go. But no, that is facts that there just isn't much more innovation to be had.
Even further.
How each team, coach, player uses the tool is different. A running back goes down, they have to pull somebody off the practice squad. And what they did was they created all the plays and the cuts to kind of get him up to speed really quickly. People use it for injury. There's quarterbacks using it who are injured, even though they can't physically participate in practice, the mental reps are there.
But then again, I don't really have that.
Hey, shout out the mental reps.
I don't really fear a 285-pound defensive lineman blindsiding me like I would in real life. But then again, I guess QBs today don't really have that either, because that's not in the... Yeah.
Right? There is no substitute for the real rep. But if you have a trade-off, if I can get 1 rep or I can get 200 digital reps, I think that is a worthy trade-off.
What about other VR sports games? Basketball doesn't really have anything worth commenting on here, but NHL's Make Sense Arena seems to be aiding NHL players, not just beer leaguers or people like me that just want to have fun. After starting with European pros for the initial 2018 launch, the Czech Republic-based company filmed undisclosed NHL players shooting pucks to create the videos used for drills and converted that footage into virtual pucks as they come toward the goalie in a VR headset. Sabres goalie Eric Comrie primarily uses it in the offseason or when he's injured and can't get on the ice. He likes the replays that allow him to review the shots from the perspective of the puck coming off the shooter's stick. A different perspective.
Nah, this actually looks tough.
Another key point of contention with this, I wasn't on the ice. I was in my living room. Other sports games, like Soccer's Be Your Best, have professionals dabbling, but that's kind of all we have right now. Anecdotal thoughts, very basic analysis. The sports teams that have money to look into this further, to play with it, to explore it further, they're doing that. But as far as convincing scientific literature that suggests that these are absolutely translating to better on-the-field performance, I'm not so sure we have that right now. Also, as I was wearing this, I thought of something that I hadn't really before. I have really bad eyesight, and I don't in here.
You know that the picture is inches from your eyes. You know that. Yet it's designed for your focusing system to be focused at a far distance.
That's Dr. Graham Erickson, professor at Pacific University and optometrist who has authored several studies in this arena and worked with a number of organizations.
This is a real challenge, and military knows this really well because all heads-up displays create significant challenges of learning how to use that and not get a lot of symptoms from trying to adjust for this mismatch.
How has the military tried to adapt to take on that challenge?
And of course, some of that I can't talk about because the military obviously
classified.
They have a different level of confidentiality.
Are you working with them?
Like I said, some things I can't talk about.
Just as there are console games seeking realism, there are VR games that are more built for training. And that makes the placement of these devices challenging. There are so many different types of mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality. It feels wrong to just lump it all together. Maybe there's a better way to think about this. This is a question of trade-offs. Are VR sports games better than, say, Netflix? In many ways, yes. Are they better than going to the court, the rink, the field, the weight room? Probably not. But you can't always do that. You might be hurt, and you might not want to lift weights for 10 hours in a day. So these are nice tools, but still far from the real experience and fairly far away from some of the.
Nah, I mean, I think there is a certain video games can do a certain thing for you, Nate. I don't think it's gonna, if you just sit around and play video games, you're gonna like exponentially improve. But I think on the margins, you could definitely get better playing games.
The other simulators we discussed.
In the right way
As we
now,
get
I'll say.
Further along this continuum, closer to entertainment, we find one of the most powerful video game genres. This is me. At least this is who I was from the hours of 9 p.m. until about 3.
Yo, Prime Halo, one of them goated series right there. I might take Prime Halo over, might be over Prime Call of Duty too. That's a tough one. Y'all let me know. What's your favorite video game like franchise of all time that you like enjoy playing? Might be Fortnite 2018, low-key. Fortnite 2018, that was a different breed. Halo. Low-key, Tech and the Great Juju Challenge. Yo, banger of a game, 10 out of 10, especially if you had like your brother, me and my brother used to play it. Homies, brother, friend on the couch next to you playing. Oh, elite gaming right there.
3 a.m. every Friday and Saturday, and sometimes Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and I guess Thursday as well. But I don't think it's coincidental that he never reveals his face. All of us who played the game, played the campaigns, we saw ourselves as him. Beneath this armor, his face was our face. But was this just some prepubescent identity crisis? Or was all this 3 a.m. button smashing, occasional screen peeking actually worth it on the court or field? Is there anything better than that sound?
Man, I miss the days I could just play Halo and be be carefree in the world.
Green kind of stumbled into this topic of gamers and cognition. He discovered something that fascinated him.
Started out as a surprise, right? First-person shooter games in the late 90s were still very new. The rise of esports. It's people to some extent recognizing that to be truly exceptional at these games requires some truly exceptional skills.
So how are they testing this? Well, here's an example of an experiment one might find.
In a test of spatial resolution, participants are told to keep their eyes on a little circle on the left. 3 T's will be flashed really quickly over in the far right periphery. Their job is to indicate whether the center T is right side up or upside down. They're told to totally ignore the top and bottom T's. They're just there to distract them. As they get the center T task correct, one would move the flanking T's closer and closer until they're no longer able to pick out just the center T. This sounds simple, but as the flanking T's move closer, it becomes a bit of a jumble. Action gamers were able to continue to do the task longer than non-gamers. This sort of spatial resolution comes into all sorts of real-world activities, even something as simple as reading. In several other studies, Green and other researchers found that action gaming enhanced visuospatial attention, which basically describes the ability to cover a wide field of view with our attention. Usually our attention is directed roughly where we are looking, but we have the ability to spread it out. Let's say you're playing dodgeball and any of the opposing players might be getting ready to throw. You might want to spread your attention to all of them to monitor for any movement, at which point you could then purposely direct your attention to the person about to throw.
Yep.
And hopefully dodge, duck, dip, dive. Dodge.
Dr. Green isn't the only one who has found benefits.
That movie is
in
funny as
these
hell.
Games. Other professionals have noted benefits as well.
The action group did have more improvement than the non-action video game. It just wasn't statistically significant change.
More than 5%.
Right.
Again, there are risks and trade-offs within this continuum. It isn't just full of fun and growth.
Obviously, if you spend your entire afternoon just sniping brutes, you're probably not going to get any better at sports. There's downsides to playing too much video games. The question is, does any dose of FPS help?
How much transfer do I get from something that is completely different? Like playing Call of Duty does require reaction time. I have to see and react, make that decision process at a cortical level and transfer that into a response.
I mean, there is
Quick research tip from these two researchers.
applicable things from video
determine
games
the
to
effect of
sports for
something,
sure.
We shouldn't just look at one study.
With the Bolt? Ashton, are you talking about Nikes?
I wish that humanity would consider that. If possible, we should perform a meta-analysis, a study of studies.
Dr. Green and several other researchers found that when you
I don't
look at
know.
the
I don't know none of the
meta-analysis combining
minor brands.
hundreds of studies, there's a consistent and reasonable sized effect for action video games, about half a standard deviation. Dr. Green added in a follow-up to me, one place I think people have offered unfair criticism is when they've done meta-analysis on the effect of all video games. For me, that's not sensible. Asking whether there's one effect of playing video games, a category that would include, for instance, Call of Duty and Flappy Bird, is something that would only occur to someone who doesn't know that much about video games. It's actually a big problem in my point of view. Many psychologists who study video games don't actually know very much about them. Dr. Green even performed a study showing this. So, what is some fair criticism of all this video game research? The underlying mechanism. That is, why does training in certain types of games produce these benefits? And if there's one effect that is incredibly difficult to rule out, it's that dreaded expectation effect. Even when Dr. Green and other researchers attempt to control, unlike a pharmaceutical experiment, there just isn't the equivalent of a sugar pill.
In a way, that Amtrak train is still rolling. Sports games are in an arms race for authenticity, and VR is the vanguard at the moment, a new wave for athletes, for the masses to immerse themselves even further. But I have to admit, I am a little hesitant to embrace all that. There's a part of me that wishes that time and technology would just kind of stand still. That land
Nope,
party
not me.
for the mountaintop. That getting better at sports meant you had to actually play sports. But then again, that F1 was pretty fun. And having a golf sim probably wouldn't be the worst thing. I'd probably get a whole lot better at golf too. So what are my thoughts on all this? It's not the real thing. Clearly, you're going to get better if you go to the rink, if you go to the court, if you go to the field, the weight room, and get real reps up, because this is not real, but used wisely and effectively. This is a whole new practice facility. One that we are just starting to understand. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Take care.
WVid for sure. Hey there. If you like that video, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button. And then follow along on Twitch so you can catch all the live moments as they happen.